What if I told you that the worst rental crisis in a generation is quietly creating one of the biggest passive income opportunities the UK has ever seen? What if the very thing that is making life harder for millions of renters is, at the exact same time, making a select group of smart investors very, very wealthy? That sounds almost wrong to say out loud, but it is exactly what is happening right now. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand it completely. Welcome to NestPath UK, and today we are going in deep on the UK rental crisis of 2026. What is really driving it, who it is hurting, who it is helping, and most importantly, how you can position yourself on the right side of this shift. Whether you are a renter trying to understand the market, someone who already owns property, or someone who has been thinking about investing for years and just has not pulled the trigger yet, this video is for you. Stay till the end, because the information in the final section alone could change how you think about wealth building in the UK forever. Let us start with the reality on the ground. Right now, in April 2026, the UK rental market is in a state of intense, sustained pressure. Average private rents have risen to £1,374 per month, a 3.5% increase in just 12 months, according to the Office for National Statistics. In the Northwest, rents jumped by 6.6% in a single year. The Northeast saw 5% growth. And Zoopla is forecasting another 2.5% rise across the rest of 2026. These are not temporary blips. This is a structural, sustained trend. And here is the number that really brings the crisis into focus. In March 2026, there were 4.8 rental inquiries for every single available property. Nearly 5 people chasing everyone home. Supply is sitting 23% below pre-pandemic levels. The queue for rental properties in good locations is not getting shorter, it is getting longer. And the people at the back of that queue are the ones who are feeling it most painfully. Now, I want to be clear about something before we go further, because on NestPath UK, we always talk about these things honestly. The rental crisis is real, and it is genuinely hurting people. Families paying rents that take up half their income, young professionals choosing between heating and eating, people unable to save for a deposit while rents keep rising. That is a human reality, and it matters. We are not celebrating that. We are trying to understand it, because understanding it is the only way to navigate it, whether you are a renter or an investor. So why is this happening? Why is supply so far behind demand? And why, despite what feels like enormous market pressure, are rents continuing to rise rather than new homes flooding the market to meet demand? The answer has several layers, and each one is important. The first layer is the landlord exodus, and this is the one that is reshaping everything right now. In 2025 alone, approximately 93,000 buy-to-let landlords exited the UK rental market. Not slowed down, exited. Sold up, took their properties off the rental market, moved on. And experts are warning that another 110,000 landlords could follow in 2026. When a landlord sells, one of two things happens. Either another investor steps in and keeps the property as a rental, supply stays stable, or a first-time buyer moves in, and that rental property disappears from the market permanently. Right now, the second scenario is happening at scale. And every property that leaves the rental sector is one less home for the people who need to rent. Why are landlords leaving? Tax is the biggest driver. The Section 24 mortgage interest relief restriction, phased in since 2017 and now fully in effect, means that individual higher rate taxpayers can no longer deduct their full mortgage interest from their rental income. In practical terms, some landlords are paying income tax even when their portfolio is technically making a loss. That is not a sustainable position. Add to this the stamp duty surcharge on additional properties, rising mortgage rates, with average 5-year fixed buy-to-let rates now above 5%, and increasing compliance costs, and the numbers simply stopped working for a large portion of the market. Then there is the Renters' Rights Act. This became law in October 2025, and its main provisions kick in on the 1st of May 2026. Section 21, no-fault evictions have been abolished. All tenancies are moving to open-ended periodic arrangements, no more fixed terms. Tenants can give just 2 months' notice and leave at any time. Rent increases are limited to once per year, with formal 2 months' notice required. Tenants can challenge rises at a tribunal. And landlords who do not comply with the new rules face enforcement action from local councils, which from December 2025 have had new and significantly expanded powers to investigate and penalize. From April 2026, Making Tax Digital is also rolling out for landlords with qualifying income above $50,000. Quarterly digital reporting is now required, and a national registration scheme for short-term lets is being introduced in England, adding compliance requirements for anyone running Airbnb-style rentals. Here is the thing, though, and this is where the narrative gets complicated and interesting. All of these changes, piled together, created a crisis of confidence among small, individual landlords. The ones who owned 1 or 2 properties treated it as a side income and found that the administration, the costs, and the new rules simply made it not worth their while anymore. And in their exit, they have done something unexpected. They have created a gap. A significant, measurable gap in the rental supply. And into that gap flows extraordinary opportunity for the investors who understand what is happening. Let me give you the yield numbers, because these are what actually matter when you are talking about passive income. Typical rental yields across the UK are now sitting at 6.93%, according to Paragon Bank. But in the highest performing locations, yields go far higher. Sunderland is delivering yields approaching 9%. Burnley, where property prices are low and rental demand from working families is consistent, is averaging 8%. East Ayrshire in Scotland offers yields between 7.9% and nearly 9%. Hull, with its large student population and affordable property prices, is comfortably above 7%. Nottingham, with 2 major universities and a growing professional population, delivers reliable long-term occupancy with solid yields. These are not speculative numbers. These are verified, current figures from real markets where real investors are generating real passive income right now. Now I want to talk about something that most YouTube videos on this topic completely skip over. Because there is a catch, and if you are thinking about buy-to-let as a passive income stream in 2026, you need to hear this clearly. Buy-to-let in 2026 is not the passive, hands-off investment it used to be. One expert put it perfectly. It is no longer armchair investing. Success now requires a business philosophy, active management, careful tenant selection, high property standards, and a disciplined approach to costs and financing. The investors who are treating their rental portfolio as a proper business are thriving. The ones who were hoping to collect rent checks without engagement are the ones leaving. So what does running it as a business actually look like? It means structuring your ownership correctly. And this is critical. In 2025, a record 43% of all buy-to-let mortgages in the UK were taken out through limited company structures. Through a limited company, mortgage interest remains fully deductible as a business expense. Corporation tax rather than income tax applies. Profits can be retained within the company and reinvested without immediately triggering personal tax. For higher rate taxpayers, the difference between personal and company ownership can be tens of thousands of pounds over a portfolio's lifetime. This is not a loophole or a trick. This is legitimate business structuring, and the smart money figured it out years ago. If you are still holding buy-to-let properties personally as a higher rate taxpayer, that conversation with a property accountant needs to happen now. Running it as a business also means choosing location based on numbers, not feelings. And this is where the regional shift that is happening in the UK becomes so important. The old model, buy in London, rely on capital growth, accept low yields, is far less compelling in 2026 than it used to be. London still has premium rents and fast relet times, with void periods averaging just 20 days. But yields sit around 5.7% and entry costs are enormous. The regions are where the passive income case is strongest right now. Manchester remains a powerhouse for rental demand, strong job market, multiple universities, young professional population, and consistent rent growth. The surrounding commuter towns offer lower entry prices with solid yields. Birmingham is the UK's second city, with a rapidly growing population and a diverse, resilient economy. Leeds and Sheffield are both performing strongly, with regeneration investment continuing to drive demand. And the smaller northern cities, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Burnley, Hull, are delivering yield numbers that London investors can only dream of, at a fraction of the entry cost. Here is something else that is reshaping the buy-to-let landscape that very few people are talking about. The collapse of the short-term let tax advantages. For several years, platforms like Airbnb gave property investors a tempting alternative to traditional buy-to-let. Higher nightly rates and, crucially, furnished holiday-let properties were exempt from Section 24, meaning mortgage interest remained fully deductible. That advantage was abolished in April 2025. Short-term let income is now taxed the same as standard rental income. And with a national registration scheme being introduced for short-term lets in England in 2026, the compliance requirements are increasing too. The result? A wave of investors who had moved into short-term lets are now reconsidering their strategy and returning to long-term buy-to-let. That is additional capital flowing back into the traditional rental sector. Further evidence that smart money is positioning itself here. Now let me talk about the demand side of this equation, because it is just as powerful as the supply story. Why is rental demand so relentlessly strong? Why are there 4.8 people chasing every rental property? The answer has three parts, and each one points to a trend that is not going away anytime soon. First, home ownership is increasingly out of reach. Despite some improvement in mortgage affordability as interest rates have edged down, house prices continue to grow, up around 5% annually, according to 2026 data. The deposit required for a first home in most UK cities remains a significant barrier, especially for people whose rent is eating the income they need to save. The renter population is growing, and it is growing with people who are not renting by choice, but by circumstance. Second, net migration remains near record highs. New arrivals to the UK for work, study, family reunification consistently enter the rental market first. They need somewhere to live immediately. They do not have time to search for a mortgage or save a deposit. They rent, and as long as migration continues at its current levels, this demand pressure does not ease. Third, the student rental market is a machine that never stops. Universities across the UK continue to attract both domestic and international students in large numbers. Purpose-built student accommodation cannot keep up with demand in most university cities. Private rental properties within commuting distance of campuses are snapped up fast with low void periods and reliable tenants. If you own the right property in the right university city, occupancy is almost guaranteed. So when you put the supply and demand picture together, shrinking rental stock on one side, relentlessly growing demand on the other, the conclusion for rents is clear. They are going up. They will keep going up. Not infinitely, not without limit, but the trajectory for 2026 and into 2027 is upward. And for a landlord holding a well-chosen property in a strong location, that trajectory means their rental income is growing year on year. I want to spend a moment on the investors who are winning right now, because there is a real pattern to who they are and what they are doing differently. The landlords thriving in 2026 are not necessarily the ones with the biggest portfolios or the most experience. They are the ones who took the regulatory changes seriously and adapted early. They restructured into limited companies before it became urgent. They invested in property condition and energy efficiency, not just because it was required, but because better properties attract better tenants who stay longer and cause fewer problems. They chose locations based on yield data rather than familiarity. And they partnered with professional letting agents or property managers who handle compliance, tenant screening, and day-to-day issues, turning what used to feel overwhelming into a genuinely manageable income stream. That last point is worth dwelling on, Because the concern that always comes up when people think about buy-to-let as passive income is the workload. The calls at midnight about a broken boiler, the difficult tenants, the paperwork. And yes, if you are self-managing a portfolio without systems, it can feel like a second full-time job. But with professional management, the passive income reality is very achievable. A good letting agent handles tenant finding, referencing, contract preparation, maintenance coordination, legal compliance, and regular inspections. Your role becomes reviewing monthly statements and making strategic decisions. For many landlords, that is genuinely passive. The management fee, typically 10 to 15% of monthly rent, is a cost of running the business efficiently, and it is fully deductible against rental income. The other piece of the passive income puzzle that is often underestimated is capital growth. Rental income is one stream, capital appreciation is the second, and they compound each other powerfully over time. UK house prices, despite a challenging few years, are on an upward trajectory again, growing around 5% annually in 2026. A property bought today that generates a 7% yield and appreciates at 5% per year is delivering total returns of around 12% annually before leverage. With a buy-to-let mortgage amplifying your returns on the equity you deploy, those numbers become even more compelling over a 10-year horizon. None of this is a get-rich-quick scheme, and I want to be clear about that. Because on Nespath UK, we do not do hype without substance. Property investment has real costs, real risks, and real complexity. Mortgage rates can rise, properties can sit empty, tenants can cause damage, regulations can change. Any serious investor prices in these risks, maintains cash reserves, and builds a portfolio with diversification and resilience in mind. But here is the fundamental truth that I keep coming back to. The UK has a structural housing shortage that is not going to be solved in the next 5 years. New construction is not keeping pace with demand. The planning system is slow. Building costs are high. Social housing supply has been eroded for decades. The result is a rental market that will remain undersupplied, with rents that will remain under upward pressure for the foreseeable future. That structural backdrop is the foundation on which the passive income opportunity sits. And it is solid. If you are watching this and you are a renter feeling the pressure of this market, I see you. This situation is genuinely difficult, and the cost of renting in the UK in 2026 is a serious burden on millions of people. But knowledge is power. Understanding what is driving the market means you can make smarter decisions, whether that is choosing where to live, how to negotiate your rent, how to use the new protections the Renters' Rights Act gives you, or how to start building toward home ownership even in a tough environment. And if you are watching this as someone who is curious about property investment, or who has been sitting on the sidelines, the message I want to leave you with is this. The easy era of buy-to-let, when anyone could buy a flat and effortlessly collect rent without systems or strategy, is over. But the smart era of buy-to-let, where prepared, professional, strategic investors can build genuine passive income in a structurally undersupplied market, is very much alive. The amateurs have left, the professionals remain. And the window to position yourself among them is open right now. That is what Nespath UK is here for. To give you the insight, the data, and the honest analysis you need to make smart decisions about building your life and your finances in the UK. If this video gave you something valuable today, please give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need this information. Subscribe to Nespath UK if you have not already, because we cover the UK housing market, immigration, finances, and everything that matters for building a real life here every single week. Drop your question or your situation in the comments below. Are you a renter navigating this market? An existing landlord rethinking your strategy? Or a first-time investor trying to figure out where to start? I read every comment, and your question very well might become the next video. Thank you for watching. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I will see you in the next one.